How you doing, man?
Proper cup of Joe coming at you. Thursday morning.
You had a few cups already, huh?
No. I'm just feeling good this morning. Getting some good work done this week. Seeing my good buddy Adam, hanging out with the peeps this morning. It's great.
So you're in the post tax season non-hangover. It's like a hangover through the tax season, and now you're just like you're boom, guns firing.
We had a really tough tax season.
Okay.
Our whole crew. I don't know. We just had a lot of clients. This is great. But
it could have been that somebody wasn't pulling their weight because they had a little, appendix problem on the team.
Well, it wasn't me. Let me just say
you were full speed ahead. I was not. Okay. No, you didn't let a drop of morphine get in the way, right?
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm just feeling good. Last week it was like 2 days after my surgery. And everything. And now I don't know. I just feel good. I went to the gym for the first time in a few months.
Oh, cool. Good for you, man.
So
there we go.
Oh, yeah. I'm feeling good.
We got a good audience. I mean, we always have a decent audience. We got a good audience. We got some. I haven't seen Carter's Coils before, so welcome. Glad to have you. Maybe you like it. Maybe you stick around. Yeah. Jeremy Bod hanging out. Troy, Adam. That's the other Adam. Shane's been killing it on media appearances, starting his Patreon, all the good stuff. Casey, speaking of Patreon, he was the original Proper Royals Patreon member. Yeah, we've milked the appendix for all we can. Like, I think I feel a little let down. Like I don't have the old chestnut to go to anymore. I'm going to have to actually work on some content, Well,
I still have a follow-up. So we'll see how the follow-up goes next week.
Okay. So there's still hope. We could have a little more suffering. We got Paul in here, Jen.
More suffering.
Lots of action. And Snake X. So Joe, what's the one thing I gotta know from your past week, man?
Yeah. So what you gotta know is I got a brother and a sister. Right?
Okay.
They're both older, so I'm the youngest of three.
Oh wow! All
right. My sister is 8 years older than me. My brother is 3 years older than me.
Okay.
And my sister finished high school, went to college, became an engineer, electrical engineer. I left high school, went straight to college, and I did whatever I did. My brother was never really liked school, never liked high school or anything. Really, just kind of.
Yeah.
And then he graduated high school.
I don't know why it gave me a thumbs down. All I was doing was nodding. I don't know what's up with that.
He gave me so he left high school and he got a construction job. He moved out, lived with my grandmother. He managed like a GNC for a little bit. He had all of these different sports jobs. He was like, but he was never like the academic person.
Sure.
Well, this past Friday, he got his PhD.
Whoa. I thought you were going to be like, he graduated high school. He got his PhD. That's cool.
Right. So
what area, what field?
Well, it's a doctorate. Oh, I guess I shouldn't say PhD. It's a doctorate of education.
Very cool.
So it's just like I was just so proud of him. I'm just so happy for him. Like, and not that it, and I think this kind of goes into what our topic is this week about like knowing things and being kind of credentialed for things and stuff like that. Like, I don't want to put PhDs and EDDs on like a pedestal or anything, because they, I've met some PhDs where I'm like, yeah, you're not, I don't think you're that smart.
This is a lie, right? Yeah, you're fooling people.
But But it was just great. It's just really cool to see my brother like go through this journey of doing what he wants to do, finding his way. And I always love like I always love, and I'm somebody that did the same thing. I always love people who don't take a normal path,
Yeah.
who just kind of do their thing, and they're successful because they follow who they are and what they want to do. I'm just so happy and excited, and I'm just really proud of this guy. And being proud is like being proud of somebody has always been kind of like a weird thing for me to say. Like if somebody said they were proud of me, I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know what that means. But in the past few years, especially with, having stepkids and then this thing with my brother, I'm like, yeah, I know what that means. I know what it means to be proud of somebody.
Well, I think it's really cool, and I think first, congrats to your brother. You're right. Like, there's one thing with credentials, and then there's one thing with practical reality. But the thing I will say is the credentials require or should require putting in the work. And
Hmm.
that is what credentials show. And that's something that I always had, I wouldn't say struggled with, but I wrestled with. I didn't enjoy school. I'm far from an academic. Took me 18 years to really finally button up and get my degree and actually have the diploma on the wall. So I was going to say empathize. I have not, I can't imagine what it would take to drag me to a doctorate degree. I couldn't do it. But on the other hand, my wife would do nothing but, Kelly would do nothing but academia. Her dream would be just to take classes and gather degrees infinitely if there was a way to make, I was going to say if there was a way to make a living doing that. There's a way to make a living. You could be a professor and have a career in academia, which you and Chelsea know a little bit about.
Yeah.
But for me, so I go to these like happy hours now that are like, because this town has two pretty lofty colleges in it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I go to these like happy hour social settings, and it's nothing but academic talk, man. And there's days where I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know. Maybe could be. That's neat. I don't know. And like the next thing I know, I'm talking to somebody who, wrote a dissertation on the disco scene in Berlin. And that actually, I was like, and there's a part of me in my mind that is like, what value are you bringing? Like, why? That's neat. That's cool.
It's neat.
It's cool. Yeah. I don't know that neat is equal to doctor. I don't know. That's a whole different topic, though. I'm going to get myself in trouble speaking that way.
Yeah,
So,
you're dangerously close to Chelsea's dissertation.
oh, well, yeah, that's true, too. I forgot about that whole thing. Yeah. So, more than neat, but still interesting in that vein. So, well, congratulations to your brother. What's his name?
His name is Dr. Edward Arner.
That's right, Dr. Edward Arner.
And I got to watch it like they live stream like
Mhm.
graduations and everything. When they put that hood on, I always think those things are like, it's kind of silly and stuff like that. But when they put that hood on them,
Is it a
and they
hood or
said
a cloak?
it's almost
Hoods
like
go
a
over your
sash.
face. Yeah, let's go sash. Hoods seem weird to me. Okay,
I think it's officially called a hood, but
really?
they put it over, and it's almost like a cape kind of
Right, a
thing that they
cape.
put.
Yeah,
And
which
then
of
when they
course goes
said,
back to Seinfeld, the caped guy.
yeah, uh, and they said Dr. Edward Arner, I was like tears in my eyes. I was like, yes, this is amazing. I can't believe it. It's just so fun. And yeah, keep going, do it. I
Yeah,
mean, I
finish it
l-
off.
I I always loved school. I always loved like the thought of school and like the thought that goes involved in being in classes, learning new ideas and stuff like big picture kind of thinking and stuff like that, which is not. I always love the impractical side of
Mm.
of school. Like I
Well,
was never like a trade person or everything, even though I like learning that kind of stuff too. But I always loved like Like that's why I've studied theology and
Sure.
history and stuff
Right.
like that. You know?
Well, I have a history degree. I love studying history,
Yeah.
which I guess I could argue the same way doesn't have as practical of implications. But I do believe if we don't learn from history, we're destined to repeat and all that, all those good cliches. So, well, Joe,
What
I
about
got,
you?
oh, it's a special time of year, my friend. Like sometimes
Snake
people,
wise. Snake
well,
wise or
that's true too. There's a certain aroma in the air. We're still thick in breeding season, and when you walk into the snake room, you can tell when Adam's been pairing. No, uh, once a year for about 2.5 weeks, the morel mushrooms appear, and I didn't tell anybody this, but a little part of me was convinced to move to Minnesota. Because do you know what the state fungus of Minnesota is?
I'm guessing morel mushrooms.
The morel mushroom.
Wow, really?
Yeah. Uh, what do we like 9 times out of 10? If I'm out on tour or stopping in on a show at Joe and Chelsea's house, what do I show up with that we're going to eat for dinner?
Steaks.
Steaks. If I could get fresh morels every day, I would give up steak for the rest of my life.
Really?
That's how
Holy
delicious
smokes.
it is. So yeah, this week, dude, look at right there in the ground. I can point to it, but you guys can't see it if I point to it. To the left of my weird cross-eyed look there's 2 morels on the forest floor there. And man, Minnesota doesn't mess around with the size of their morels. Look how big those chunky morels are. And then found this bad boy. That's right next to a Sharpie pen. Look at the size of that morel.
The ones that you've gotten before, what's usually been the size? I know that you used to go when you lived in North Carolina.
Right. So in North Carolina, we had the morels. They would come, and they were much smaller. I would say the largest morel I ever found in North Carolina was about half the size of the one that I'm showing right there.
Okay. All right. Wow.
And then
because the climate is right for them in Minnesota. Is that it?
I guess the climate, the morels have a symbiotic relationship with certain species of trees. And in North Carolina, it was the poplars and ash trees. But here it's elms. And even some people claim oaks, which there's a lot unknown about these mushrooms still. And for the record, these are edible, delicious mushrooms, not, I don't know, no psychoactive fun going on with these things. Although with the wine that I consume with them, you could argue that it has some fun effects.
Well, yeah. How do you, you keep going. I have a few questions.
So yeah. So I actually showed restraint. And like a good Minnesotan, I planned for the winter. And what I do is I'll cook that whole thing down. Those greens next to it are a wild onion called ramps. So I cooked morel and ramps, sauteed them down, and then I mix it into with thyme, salt, and then the little green stacks of butter or Irish butter there, a little higher cream content, as if your regular run-of-the-mill butter wasn't enough. You got some extra cream. And then I whip it all together into a compound butter, and I roll it into rolls, and I throw it in the freezer. So I've got about 3 pounds of morel butter in the freezer now, and I'll have that. So I could put that on top of steaks. I could use it as a spread on crackers. I could make pasta sauce out of it.
And this butter has a distinct flavor to it.
Yeah, it tastes just like the morels. Yeah, the morels
tastes like the morels,
and the morels. Yeah.
And the morels, can you describe the taste of the morels and how they are different from other mushrooms?
It's an incredibly meaty flavor, and it really seriously is the closest thing to steak that I've ever tasted that isn't steak. And like good steak. Like, you guys know my background. Like, I've studied food, certified sommelier. Like, I got a trained palate. Like, if there's talk about knowledge, if there is one thing I know, it's flavors and palate. So those are my favorite, man. All the other mushrooms, I still forage throughout the year, and I look for wild mushrooms. None compare to morels. This is the. I won't say I'll be satisfied, but even if I don't find any more the rest of the year, having that stock in the freezer to have for the year. Now, the next meal, if I find this batch again, this many again, we'll just have a gluttonous dinner this weekend. I'll just cook that up with a cream sauce. I'll put those on top of ribeyes, and then the next day I'll make a cream pasta sauce, and we'll have that with some penne pasta or something. It's amazing.
And so if you put it on a steak, they cook down a little bit, just like other types of mushrooms,
Yeah,
and you put it,
yeah. I'll put some cream, thyme, shallots, and throw that right on top of a ribeye, and go find the biggest Cabernet I can.
That sounds awesome. That
Yeah,
sounds so
man.
great. Now, I asked you how they taste, which
Yes.
is, I always think like, uh, so I can't articulate taste. I
Yeah.
don't know how to tell people how something tastes. Is that unusual?
Oh,
Uh,
it's very unusual. So it's actually something when I was studying for my wine courses and sommelier stuff, we actually ask ourselves, you go through this exercise that you could do at any time on anything. Describe the way something tastes without actually saying the thing.
mhm.
So if you were to describe a cantaloupe, we all know what cantaloupe tastes like. We're going to say it tastes like a damn cantaloupe, but it's a
Yeah,
really challenging experiment to
yeah,
say. And then you start thinking, well, okay, by the rind, that tastes different. That's a little more acidic, a little, we associate acidity and fruit with greenness versus sweetness. The inside of the cantaloupe, well, that's got a little bit of a honey sort of flavor, and it's more sweet. So what part of the cantaloupe is it? And you start working through that, and then you start describing sensations. Like cantaloupe makes my tongue tingle a little bit. The part near the rind, that has a little different texture than the inside by the seeds, but there's a sweet spot in there, not flavor sweet. There's a good spot in there where it's got the right texture and the flavor. So you go through that, and then you start equating things to different flavors that you've tasted in time. So like, this is kind of gross, but I used to, if I were playing baseball out in right field doing nothing, I would chew on my glove. Well, that was kind of a leathery, sweaty, dirty flavor, but I remember that flavor.
you
And
know what? I do too.
there's
Yeah.
times in Pinot Noir that we call Pinot an earthy flavor, and I'm like, it sort of tastes like my old baseball glove. Not a good selling point, but
This
an accurate descriptor.
we have this Pinot Noir
That's right.
from Napa Valley. Tastes like an old catcher's mitt.
In
Uh,
1987.
oh, well, that's good to know that I'm
Yeah.
in that it's not a deficiency that I have. People go, what does it taste like?
Ultimately,
Good. I don't know.
that's the whole sommelier training. So, sommeliers, we get everybody, you just made a sommelier go, ooh, yeah, that's from the snottiness that goes with it. But the real answer of being a sommelier is being able to accurately describe how it tastes, and then assessing, hey, how are people going to enjoy this? What's it going to
Yeah.
go the best with? And that's the root of trying to describe all those flavors and descriptors and all those things that we put into being a sommelier, so that things go the best. You get the best experience out of what you're doing and what you're enjoying generally.
And then and you learn, and there's an agreed upon way things taste in when you're getting so you could be wrong in what you're tasting. Like when you went through your certification and you tasted, oh,
Right,
this is ash or oak or whatever, and somebody would go, no, that's not what's in there.
right. So
It could be wrong.
there, yeah. Well, we do have variations in our palate, and
Yeah.
I would tell when I would lead these classes. Yeah, Sam. So yeah, penne pasta with a vegetarian option with a darker. Oh, this is where it's at, man. Get yourself some morels if you can. Oh, yeah.
Can you get fresh morels like in Florida?
Oh no, no.
Now I think you gave us some butter once.
Yeah, I probably brought it one time
Yeah,
for.
I
Yeah,
remember that.
it's a little
Oh, that
payment.
was
Yeah, a
gone in
little.
like a day.
We just devoured it. Yeah. No, they don't grow in Florida. You could get them at like farmers markets and stuff, in like North Carolina, and I would assume around here. But Joe, I remember one year, the club I was operating wanted the owner was like, "Get some morels in here for opening day," kind of thing. We paid $80 a pound for them.
Oh
Like,
my gosh.
yeah, I mean, costs, not retail. Like, yeah, I mean,
Now
so
here's another thing. And this is the kind of guy I am.
okay,
So I love going out on hikes and stuff. Not in Florida. I don't like
yeah,
it.
right.
It's too hot and you don't really see too much.
I was
But
96 there today.
eesh,
Oh my
eesh.
gosh, yeah,
So, but when I lived in Pennsylvania, Virginia, I would try to get out and climb and not climb, but hike and everything. I just like one of my favorite things to do is find like a watering hole, like a swimming hole, and
yeah,
go in the crisp water, and oh, it's great. Um, I don't think I would ever go into the wild and find something and then eat it. Like where I'm not that like I feel so like when I go and I swim in a creek or something, I'm like, oh, I'm so in tune with nature,
right, right.
you know. But I would I'm not that in tune with nature that I would find something, take it home, and then eat it. Like,
Yeah,
is
go
there
with
like do you ever
you.
go
There's like a mentorship kind of thing. You you
okay.
you you go with somebody that knows, and you do your research and your knowledge. But there's also a saying that says there's old foragers and there's bold foragers. Rarely are they both. You
Oh.
yeah.
Yeah, I like that. That's fun.
So quick shout out to Perry at Soda Balls, SOTA as in Minnesota Balls. Perry invited me to go forage on his farm, and he knows the terrain very well. And truth be told, he led me to a lot of these prime areas that would have them, and we found them. Even in the woods, Perry said, "Hey, here's a certain type of mustard. You want to try it?" And I said, "No, thank you." And I hope I didn't offend him, but I trust him. I'm sure he knows what he's doing. He ate it just fine. If I don't know of it, I'm not grabbing something off the forest floor to eat. So even with mushrooms, there's really only about 7 species that I am comfortable with consuming. So yeah, a lot of study. But that's some morel mushrooms, man. They're here. So
Great.
if anybody's in Minnesota this weekend, I've cleared my schedule. This weekend is solely dedicated, other than Mother's Day on Sunday, is solely
Oh,
dedicated to mushroom foraging this weekend. Should be the height of morel season this weekend.
that's fun, man. That's great. That's great. Now, we do want to recognize our sponsors.
We do want
Creative
to do
Genetics.
that. First and foremost, Keith at Creative Genetics. We got a few more females that his boy is going to pair with here. He and I did a breeding partnership. That's Keith at Creative Genetics out in Fresno, California. Keith is working with the Stranger gene and working that into a variety of recessive combos like pieds, clowns, and hypos. So if you're looking for Stranger in dominant or recessive, visual or het combinations, check out Keith at Creative Genetics. I do have one of the snakes that we are doing breeding partnership with. And then Cold Blooded Cafe.
Wait. Keith is a great contributor to the show as well, too. So always like having him on the show. And
when he gets up at it's 6:30 here in Minnesota when we start. So it's 4:30 in the morning when you see Keith on. That's when Keith arrives. So Cold Blooded Cafe, you guys are great. I think I don't even know if I'm supposed to share this stuff, but I do. Cold Blooded Cafe sends out sponsorship results and all of that. You ball python buyers, breeders, rodent consumers. Yeah, you use the proper 11 code more than any other sponsor, and it brings value to me because they're happy as my sponsor, and there's all the financial transactions, and you guys are happy because you're getting great quality. If you haven't tried Cold Blooded Cafe for your frozen rodent needs, you should. I was a customer of theirs long before we ever got into business together. We just talked about my food quality knowledge and background. They're who I used, and they were who I continue to use, and I'm proud to be aligned with them for almost a year and a half now. Use the promo code proper11. You can also use this at the same order. You can also use the promo code FS250. If you get over $250, you get free shipping if you type in the code FS250, and Proper11 is going to save you 11%, which is a chunk of change on $250+. So give them a shot if you haven't. Thanks, guys, for the support as well for supporting Cold Blooded Cafe.
So speaking of taste and snakes and what they eat,
right? We don't taste the snakes, though.
No. I'm asking about the taste that the snakes have. Do they're temperamental about what they eat? Huh?
They are known to be. Yes, ball pythons are known to be that. Yeah.
Do they go? Okay, well, I'm done with these frozen ones. I want the ASF now, the live ASF.
Look at you knowing the difference between rodent species and all of that. Yeah, sometimes they do, man. Sometimes you got to, you got to find a little different option. But yeah, most of them, I thought you were going to ask me if like Cold Blooded Cafe's flavors for the snakes were better. I was like, I can't commit to that. I don't know. I can't go down that road.
You already did. You did that the other week. You were like, when you open up a bag.
No, they're fresher. I think that they're fresher and higher quality. I do believe that. No, they can't. So some people don't believe that I feed the majority of my snakes. I mean, almost 200 in here. Most of mine eat frozen thawed. But I do have some that are like, no, give me the live. And then some are like, no, give me ASFs.
Oh, okay. So you just have to learn their tastes.
That's right. Or I think conditioning makes a big difference. So, but that's a whole different topic. So, Joe, I think about this question a lot because I in my career, as I learned more and got more of an expert, as I learned more of what I'm doing now, even as I learn more in this whole little podcast media realm, I find sometimes too much knowledge it adds problems to my life. And I don't for a second think that knowledge and information is evil. It's clearly, we would all say we're better off knowing more facts. It's how we all live longer. It's how society improves. Every generation says the next generation is, going to hell or whatever. And it's the end of life as we know it. And every generation lives longer, gets richer. It hopefully does more good in the world than evil, although that's debatable. And that's a whole different show. So I'm not saying that I don't think more knowledge is bad. But on the surface, just for a hook, there's days where there's like this paradox of knowledge where like life was simpler. Ball pythons were simpler when I just, thought pieds looked really cool. And even at the show this weekend, I was thinking about that. Like I have one customer base that wants, audience, help me out here. You want these genetics that are this amazing thing and that amazing thing. And then I was at largely a pet show where most of the audience, most of the consumers knew nothing about that. And they were just like, that's an amazing looking orange and white snake. How does that happen? And I'm like, that's right. That's the core of it all. Just that exciting.
And they seem amazing. Are you saying they seem like happier and more excited about?
They're blown away by it. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. there's other shows like Tinley that the audience and myself would go to, and we would see some that are $15,000 snakes that we're blown away by. But it's only because we have all the knowledge that we know what it took to make that snake. Like we base that decision on something other than, hey, that's cool, that's beautiful and amazing.
Yeah.
So I wrestle with. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I wonder, like, even now that's a different direction. I was thinking about this differently, but
I noticed on our text last night, which I think is still fair for you to bring up, because I liked that from a show prep standpoint, that you went a whole different angle on the thoughts.
Yeah. So I'm not, but I want to address this topic here because, it's like going for a hike, right? It's
okay.
I mentioned that earlier. Like, okay, I grew up in Pennsylvania in the Pocono Mountains, and I love. It's a beautiful area. It's fantastic. I grew up near Delaware Water Gap. There's 2 mountains there. There's a whole bunch of different trails and stuff. So you go and you go hiking and everything, and then I move out of there and I move to Virginia, and I see the mountains in Virginia, and then I go into West Virginia, and West Virginia's ridges are just beautiful. They're fantastic, and then I go back and I go, yeah, this is a nice place, but I like it just because it's familiar. I've seen like other places.
Yeah.
Then you go to Colorado and you see the mountains
right.
there, and you're like, what the hell? This is amazing. But it starts to lose, where I grew up starts to lose its majesty.
Oh, because of the other
yeah,
you've experienced
I've experienced and learned about these other places.
So that was almost so we've been almost talking about almost like the ignorance is bliss argument then.
Yeah. And I think, and I go, like, my dad, never liked to travel anywhere. He wanted to stay right in Pennsylvania. He didn't even like to go to New York State or
not going to Jersey, right?
He never really wanted to travel anywhere or do anything because he just wanted to stay there. And he had this philosophy where it was like, the secret to I just read this thing he wrote me. He goes, don't forget, the secret to a happy life is continuous small treats. Small treats.
Little morels all through life, just little annual morels once a year. Yeah.
Like the way that you get excited about morels, like he would get excited about just having a bowl of ice cream, and he put chocolate syrup and peanuts on it. Like,
well, you should let him know.
Get so excited about that, and he was a happy guy.
There should be morels in Pennsylvania right about now too. Actually, yeah, if he wants to get out for a little treat for himself. Now this just took a dark turn. Don't tell your dad to go eating any mushroom that he finds. Like that's we can't have that report next week. Okay.
Okay. Well, he's already passed away, so it's not going to be a problem.
Shoot myself in the foot. So sorry, man. Jeez. Okay. Yeah.
And interestingly enough, it was from eating something in the woods.
I got thinking more about this because we hear this all the time. There's business cliches. We hear this all the time. Paralysis by analysis, right? We've all heard that.
Yeah.
That's another example of this. You're just churning too much information. You don't know what to do with it all. Or I think about for myself, one particular thing. So I've been doing these shows for a few years now, coming up on 3 years, YouTube for almost 5 years. I rarely rewatch the show. Certainly critically, I rarely rewatch it. I'll listen sometimes if I'm driving and that kind of thing. And then I do like to review the comments. But I looked at the show one day and I said, man, it doesn't look, the quality doesn't look that good. And when I figured out the purple lighting and I figured out my ring light and my little microphone, I was like, this is amazing. This looks great. And now here I am, 8 months, year removed from figuring out lighting and ring light and my Canon camera. And I'm like, nah, it doesn't look that good. So I went from thinking it looked the most amazing ever to, I got to redo that.
Because you became more experienced with it.
Yeah. And I knew, because I also learned that there was another opportunity out there. StreamYard, that we broadcast over, that's sort of the distributor of how we're broadcasting right now. You got to pay more if you want to be broadcast in 1080p. You and I are only flying out over the internet at 720.
I mean, what are we even doing?
I know.
What are we doing?
And now I know this, and I'm like, shoot, I got to spend another $200 a year because I want more. But I was so happy with it a year ago.
Right. Yeah.
And now I know that it's there. And there's a million things like that. Snake genetics. Oh, so thrilled. I had a dream snake last year. And now I'm like, I need something else. So I think that we do that a lot. I get thinking about, we bought this house less than a year ago. Talk about information overload. Man, I got to learn. I learned so much. I learned about the cost of living in this town. I learned about the average income in this town. I learned about the future sidewalk plans and whether or not they would, if there was what do they call it? Where, like, even though you own the land, like the utility or the city can have the, I forget what that's called, easement. Was there going to be an easement for the sidewalk? When, like, so I never thought or cared about a sidewalk in my life,
Yeah. So when you were thinking about buying your house, did you factor those things in, or did you think about those things? Or
I didn't think about them until I stumbled across them. I didn't set out a list and go, I need to find out about this sidewalk problem. No, nobody thinks about that. But somewhere in one little snippet of something about Northfield, Minnesota, there was an irate citizen that, was going to get to the bottom of this sidewalk issue.
Yeah.
It's something that suddenly I learned, and it slowed me down rather than helping me out.
And ultimately, what is going to be the impact of that kind of thing for your living situation?
Nothing. That's my point. Nothing.
Yeah, right.
I spent all that time on knowledge screwing me over. What's the difference in real quality at the end of the day? Do we need to be in 1080? Probably want to be, but it doesn't make it. I don't know if it makes a difference. And that was what I was getting at. So then, because I can't let things go and I want to know more, this factors in here. I Google this whole thing up. I'm like, this is a paradox because, of course we should know more, right? I think. But why am I feeling this way? 1956. Let's get academic. Miller et al. Wrote. Yeah, see how I did that there? What's that mean? Miller and his buddies.
Miller and his buddies.
Yeah, 1956. Miller writes in the APA, what's that, American Psychological Association? Yeah. Miller writes with a fair amount of research. He writes an article called The Magic Number 7, and then in parentheses, ±2. Miller says, on any given topic, on any given moment, our brains can handle about 7 pieces of information effectively. ±2. If you're smart, you can handle 9. If you're a dum-dum, you can handle 5. I'll be the dum-dum, you be the smart guy. So 5 to 9, magic number 7. He says anything more than 7 bits of information on any given decision is nothing but prohibitive or clouding. And he has some research to back it up. And what he found was another interesting point, 2 interesting points. What he found was we get more confident with more information. And that, I got to find out about this house. Is this the right? I know about the sidewalk problem. I'm confident now, right? I'm going to make a good decision, right? He says, so they ran a study, a football game that had already happened. It's done. This is all fact. He had one group where he gave them 6 bits of information, 6 bits of facts about the game. And he asked people to predict the outcome. People predicted the outcome with accuracy about 67% of the time. He gave another group 12 bits of information about the game. They predicted the outcome accurately about 67% of the time. He gave another group 18 bits of information about the game that was factual. They predicted the outcome accurately about 67% of the time.
Wow.
24 bits of factual information about the game. They predicted the outcome about 66% of the time correctly. However, and this is that graph here. So the dark connected line is the accuracy, mostly a flat line, but their confidence soared. And immediately in my mind, I go to a gambler who thinks that they have more information. And so their confidence soars. And what happens with confidence? We make decisions with bigger stakes when we're more confident because we think that we know more. Yet the outcomes are generally flatline above, that six bits of information standpoint. So I thought that was interesting to say the least, but I thought it explained and coincided with some of these thoughts that I'm having of like, do we know too much? Why is there that paralysis by analysis? And then the thing that drives me nuts, because I like to tell myself I'm a fairly smart guy. I see people, this is going to sound really mean, that I feel like are just sort of lucky in life, bumbling their way through, just doing these amazing things, right? What if they're just getting on with decision making? They take their 6 bits of information and then we call them, I'm going to make a decision on my gut. No, you got your 6 bits of information. You're as good as it's going to get, and you go make it. And so they're making great decisions or the same caliber decisions, but doing it quicker and more effectively and more efficiently.
Well, that's what you're saying is opposite of what the study says, though. That's how I'm understanding it.
I'm not saying they're not doing it better. It takes me 3 weeks to make the same decision they made in 1 week, and our outcome was the same.
But because they have less information, or they work on less information, they work off of less information, they have more confidence in the decision that they're making.
I don't think it's, I see. I don't know that it's more confidence. I think they've just accepted that it could be good or bad, and they go on.
Yeah. Okay.
That's interesting.
I mean, see, I thought the results of this study would be the opposite, actually, because the more information I get, the more I'm like weighing 18 bits of information in my head. And I go, well, okay, well, I didn't think of that. I didn't think of that. So that makes me less confident in the decisions that I make.
Oh, you get less confident with more information?
That's what I would think. That's what I would.
But that's backwards. No, we all go, we want to know. Of course, we're going to be more confident when we know more stuff, right? Or no, that's where you're getting the paralysis. You're like, wait a minute. Okay, there's that paralysis. I see what you're saying.
Right. So, like if you're thinking too much about all of the different factors, if you go to buy a house and somebody starts talking about sidewalks and you've never even weighing that bit of information, you make a decision about the house that goes against, the sidewalk factor. You go, oh, maybe I should have gotten the better sidewalk thing,
Or you walk away because you're like, I'll have this city know nobody's going to mess with my sidewalk land. And then you buy a worse house because of that one detail. And forever you're driving by going, that's a pretty good looking sidewalk, actually. But but I find that we do that because there's so much information and so much information overload. I mean, even in our own little world, there's a bazillion of these little podcasts of you know, reptiles and all of that. Yeah, that's Creative Reptile says the information overloads you to where you don't act at all. I find at certain shows, I don't know how consumers make a choice. At Tinley, I don't even know the sales angle because people are like, man, there's a lot here. And I'm like, yeah,
Right. Yeah.
how are you ever going to choose in here?
So at Daytona, I was like,
Same deal. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I liked the look of your station, your
Right.
booth. Like I liked it, and that's probably I would probably, because I don't know, I would probably just look, oh, who's the coolest looking booth around here?
Well, and to Shannon at Green Dragon Brokers credit, Shannon dressed up in a green inflatable green dragon costume that he's like dancing around and slinging snakes in. And at the time, I'm like, what are you doing? That's as good as any other argument. How are you going to make a decision? Hey, well, that dude dressed up in a green dragon. He must really care. You know, like it worked. He had a great Daytona. So that's the stuff where I'm like, man, I don't know. But it also plays to there's certain show. You got to find the shows where you do feel like you can differentiate as a vendor and you can stand out. And so actually this past show that I did most recently, it was actually an exotic pet fair. So there were birds, there were hedgehogs, there were chinchillas. So we had a kangaroo. You can't buy a kangaroo. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it wasn't for sale, but maybe, I don't know. I don't know the rules of kangaroos in Wisconsin, but there were less ball python breeders there, although the ones that were there were very good. So maybe less choice, and it was a great show for me. So maybe less choice is better. I don't know, man. That's where I'm going with, like, where's that sweet spot between ignorance and knowledge?
Right. Yeah. 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 I mean, you're doing a good job because you're judging the shows, and I mean, I'm sure that's what everybody does here as a breeder. You're judging the shows and saying, who's the clientele that's coming in? Is this an industry show? Is this what did you call the one?
A pet show.
Pet show.
Yeah.
You know, then you go to a pet show, you pare down, you know, maybe the options. You go to an industry show, maybe you only bring out the best ones for the industry, that kind of thing.
Well, yeah.
I think, but I like when we were texting back and forth last night, I was like, my first thought was about, you know, interacting with people who know things and interacting with people who don't know things. And I started to think about, like, at a show, I want somebody I want somebody who is an expert to tell me what's going on, what they have, you know, that kind of thing. But that I trust people who have a certain humility about it. Like, I trust people more if they're able to go, you know what, I don't know, let me find that out. As opposed to somebody who's like got all the answers right away,
Right.
knows everything,
the fast talker,
about
yeah.
everything, you know.
So
And that's in everyday life too. I tend to stay away from folks like that because there doesn't seem to be any desire to grow because they already know everything.
Right,
you
right.
know?
So there's been, as one would imagine, since 1956, there's been some follow-up discussion and debate about this.
Oh, you know what? Before you move on, that 7 thing.
Yeah,
I wonder, is that the reason why phone numbers have 7 digits?
I'm certain it's not, but maybe there's hope.
Because I heard that when I was a kid. I heard I never read that anywhere.
Oh, really? Huh.
But I heard, oh, people remember 7 numbers. They don't remember 8 numbers, 9 numbers.
Interesting. Maybe I don't know. We'll have to look it up. I was eager to jump in because you said the word humility.
Yeah.
And there's been follow-up articles written, and Stephen has an interesting point here too from Leviathan Snakes that I want to, oh man, now he's bringing out authors that I love too. So we're going to have to dive in on that in just a second. And I have this big thing to tie it all back together. But one article that says, how do you combat this? It says, use tools to basically amalgamate or consolidate information. So if you have 42 bits of information, find a machine or a tool that can siphon that down to one yes or no, and that becomes one of your 7. So 42 comes down to 1 and 7 kind of deal. But another article says, practice humility. How do you deal with this in life? Practice humility. Realize that the information paradox applies to you and not just to other people. We think that everybody else can't handle this, but because we're all above average, right? We can handle it. The more information you consume, the more confident you'll be about what you think will happen. That was the research study. Yet, because of brain limitations, that additional information harms your decision-making capabilities. Always keep in mind that more information isn't always better. So that was when you said you prefer people with humility. I bet that ties into it because they're probably going to make good decisions and they probably thought through stuff a little bit.
But I think people are different in that way. I think some people, maybe I'm wrong. Some people respect expertise more than they would humility. And for me, I respect humility more than expertise.
There's times that I'm vending and there'll be somebody across the aisle from me that is the fastest talker, the expert, just no room for discussion, no room for debate.
Right.
And I'm like, this guy is off-putting and he's slinging snakes, man, sales left and right. I've also had to accept that there's different appetites for different flavors in life. I mean, there's couples that I see. I'm like, how the hell did those two ever get together? There's different appetites. Stephen brought up a point here and he says, there's a study that shows when people are presented with 2 equally good choices and doing nothing versus 1 choice and nothing, the situation with 2 good choices doubles the amount of people who do nothing. Turn that over for a minute.
I'm losing it. I don't know what that means.
You can. Give me 2 good things. You want to go to Busch Gardens tomorrow? You want to go see Bruce Springsteen tomorrow, or do you want to stay home?
Okay.
Out of those 3, the study says when there's 2 good things offered, more people will stay home, do nothing, versus, hey, you want to go see Springsteen tomorrow?
Okay.
I don't know that I'm presenting that exactly right. There's probably a stronger amount of control. And of course, there's logistics of getting in and out of Busch Gardens, drinking beer versus, whatever. But 2 equally good choices. Here's the other thing. In 2005, a guy named Barry Schwartz wrote a book called The Paradox of Choice. And I use this in my leadership and in my corporate career constantly. And there was a study done about where people spend the most time in the grocery store. Have you heard this before? Do you want to take a stab at where it is?
I would say produce.
No. According to Barry Schwartz,
deli, because it takes so long to get your.
Well, that's true. That's not okay. By self-imposed taking so long, people spend the most time on the salad dressing aisle.
Wow, really?
150 salad dressings. What do you do? Look at them all. But you know what they buy? One word. Give me one word. There it is. Right there. It doesn't change the outcome of what the bestseller is. There hasn't been that quantum leap, that paradigm shift. And what happens is, thank you, Shane. I'm glad. Shane doesn't care if you're in 720 or 1080. That could save me $200 this year. We'll see. So what the paradox of choice has to do with this whole thing of knowledge. And one of the things I was reading about knowledge, it said, the researcher said, they put forth that the typical human being makes about 35,000 decisions on any given day. Do I want my chair here? Do I want my chair here? Do I like this angle here? Do I like 35,000 of those throughout the day?
Yeah.
When we're faced with choice, or excuse me, knowledge creates more choices. Now that I know there's 600 ball python traits, I have to make more little decisions along the way. Yeah, decision fatigue. When I only knew there was a normal looking one and a badass little orange and white little one, it was easy. There's no problem. And I think this paradox of choice is actually the same thing as too much knowledge. Every bit of knowledge becomes a choice that we make. That stupid sidewalk thing. Now I had to make a decision or a choice of what I was going to choose on that. And so the salad dressing thing, that always played into my menu building. You know, the board members would be like, Adam, we got to have a beer garden with 56 different kegs on tap. And I'm like, look, I can give you 18 reasons why that's a dumb idea for our current location and our clientele. But the easiest answer is Mick Ultra and Bud Light are still going to outsell anything that we put on tap right here.
Right, yeah.
Let me tell you that. At the end of the day, it's that ranch dressing. You can make money on Thousand Island and blue cheese and Italian. But, and I didn't know that answer about 7, but honestly, above 7 choices, what are we doing? Let's cover our bases and let's go on.
Right. Yeah.
Because I can want the clientele to want something other than Bud Light and Mick Ultra, but if I want to keep the lights on and keep people employed, that's what they're going to buy and what I'm going to sell to them.
So if I have a busy day, right? If I have a really busy day at work, I'm making a lot of decisions, right? And so I get home and then I have to decide what I'm going to have to eat.
Right.
Like I love eating. Believe me, it's one of my it's my favorite thing to do.
Right.
Okay. But like I got to decide, like that's frustrating. And so yes, decision fatigue. I definitely think that is a real thing. And it reminds me of this article Chuck Klosterman wrote a while ago, and it was about the growing choices in society, and that there's like a cultural consequence of so many choices, right?
Right.
And the way that he described it was, he talked about late night talk shows and how there was. In the 80s, there was one late night talk show, Johnny Carson, and people would then see what was going on Johnny, and then they talk about that the next day or whatever. And everything comes back to Seinfeld, right? What was Seinfeld? It was the water cooler show, right?
Yeah.
So you'd watch Seinfeld, you'd go into work at the water cooler, you talk about Seinfeld. There's no water cooler shows anymore because there are so many different choices about what you can consume, so many different choices about what you're watching, that actually there's a breakdown of communal experience.
Right. It's so much more likely now when somebody goes, "Hey, did you see this?" And you go,
"No, I didn't see that yet."
No, I know nothing about that. I don't know.
No. There's fewer of those cultural experiences or communal experiences that it's actually breaking down. Now, translate that to the kinds of shows that you go to. Is there like, are there more people who are going to, I don't know, what's the reach of for a pet show as opposed the possible reach of a pet show as opposed to the possible reach of a more of an industry show.
Yeah, I mean, the possible reach of a pet show is magnitudes higher.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It seems that I don't know. It's just something to think about because, uh, uh, and it determines, if you're a breeder and if you're at one of these shows, how are you going to behave? What you're going to bring? Who are you going to talk to? All of
Yeah,
that.
how you going to interact and all that. And then you go right back to the paralysis analysis thing, because you can go, well, what if somebody shows up? What if this happens? Or am I representing well, I don't want to, I got to bring my badass snake. It'll never sell, but I got to bring it because I don't want people to think that I'm a this when I got this. And all of those choices and decisions pop into your head.
I think that's why people want to simplify. They want to simplify their life. They want to pare down. I mean,
Yeah,
they get rid of the clutter. Just
right. Well, no. Oh, that's actually something I work on ferociously on, the clutter. There's an argument that says every bit of clutter is another decision you have to make. Even walking by it, deciding whether to keep it over and over, that's one of those 35,000 decisions that you make daily. And when you don't do anything about it, there it is tomorrow, and you're still going to walk by it and you're still going to look at it. It's still taking space, even if you have to organize it and it doesn't take space, you still organize it. Throw it out, get rid of it.
Now, last question here.
Yeah.
Because we're running up against the time. But so you started out with a small collection of ball pythons.
I did.
It's grown and grown and grown.
Yes.
So in terms of breeding, has it become more difficult as to the decision that you're making as to which snakes you're going to pair?
Yeah, it has. Yes.
But you enjoy the process of that decision because of you have more options.
Yes, I do. So great way to tie that all together, and it is probably the best example of this challenge. So there are tools, there's breeding software out there that can sort of distill down all of these options into a couple good options. Mm-hmm. Now, I had to decide, do I like the methodology that they use to distill that down to a good or a bad option? So there's that part of it. But I do enjoy that process very, very much. And where I thought you were going to go is, I use this example, the discussion from my Patreon, from Proper Royals Patreon just yesterday. What is the next great gene you guys got to get? And I didn't really answer because I've found a real benefit in the horse blinder. Like, all right, I could buy no other snakes for the next 10 years and I would be creating amazing things with just the ingredients I have in this room. Yeah. I won't do that. I know that I want to buy something else and I want to add something else to it, but I can't always be looking at the next best thing. I have to be looking, I can be looking for the next best decision, but I can't just go, I like, kid in a candy store, dog chasing a squirrel, or whatever the analogies are. So yes, I enjoy the process, but there are moments in the process where I will revamp that list 20 times. And I don't know that the 20th one is any better than the first one, though, Joe. So have I inefficiently used a month of my time when really the outcome was going to be that same similar basic flat line that I talked about earlier?
But it's not necessarily the outcome that is the thing. So, and what I mean by that is that
don't give me the journey is the thing. The outcome is the thing.
It is. It is the journey, buddy. It is, because, and this is what I was saying last night. I also enjoy not knowing things because it gives me the opportunity to ask questions. And that's one of my favorite things to do is to sit with somebody and ask questions and learn from them. And
Sure.
and the problem is I don't have a great memory, so they'll tell me something. Even my question of the day, which we're not going to get to, is a repeat question because sometimes things don't stick in my mind. But what I love is I love the process of asking questions and learning, and that is the coolest thing to me. I love it. So it's not wasted time, Adam, even if you do get to the same outcome. That's what I believe because you've spent your time doing something that you really love, you really enjoy.
Yeah, but one big thing, Joe, I can't be homeless and hungry. So okay, all right. The results do count. I gotta get a little. I got.
I'm not saying they don't. I'm just saying it's not wasted time.
Okay, fair enough. I appreciate that. I thought one little quick wrap up here, very quick. I thought this was interesting and ironic. There's a marketing website called brainify.ai. And it says how to reduce choice overload with personalization. In order to avoid confronting your consumers with the paradox of choice, you should focus on cultivating a brand experience where the choice becomes obvious. And that's a great line. That's a great marketing thought. The goal is to understand the customer so well that you can predict what they'll respond to. And then it ends the statement with analyzing data is the way to get to this level of personalization and understanding. More knowledge is what it's going to take to defeat the paradox of choice and this paradox of knowledge. So we're right back to where we started on the paradox. As we finish up, guys, Stephen mentioned an author called Seth Godin. Stephen likes the book on marketing. And I like the book by Seth Godin called Linchpin. That is one book that sits on my shelf. So there are two thumbs up for Seth Godin. Go check him out on various places. You check him out on YouTube and some TED Talks, I think. But he's a great marketing author if you want to see where people like Steven get some of his ideas from. And like I say, he's Linchpin is the book that I like by Seth Godin. Joe, we have to figure out what we're going to do next week because I could tell you what I'm probably not going to be doing at 6:30 in the morning next Thursday is hosting this show. We got to find, we got to spin the wheel on who's going to guest
see
host.
Social Distortion.
Okay. Yeah, I have a Wednesday night date with Mike Ness and the boys from Social D, and it's going to conflict strongly with my Thursday morning.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll do it, and I'll do it, and we'll talk.
No, we're gonna find it. That's exactly what we're gonna do. Guys, yeah, this is a good topic. I do feel bad. We're out of time though. We got to run. Troy says eliminate decisions. That's exactly right. Like keep the blinders on, keep a focus. Don't give yourself those choices. Stick with what's good. Unless you want to go on Joe's journey of I feel unsatisfied. I feel like we gotta do more, but we gotta leave it. So maybe we'll revisit in the future. Maybe this will pop up again. Joe, I really enjoyed it. I'm glad you're doing well. Keep going to the gym, man. I hope you have an awesome week.
Yeah, you too, man. And everybody else, thanks for joining us. And we'll see you next week.
All right.